Hello there! Let's do something a little bit unusual for us and take a look at a game so new that it's not even out yet.
Today, we're covering Star Wars Shatterpoint. As well as being tabletop wargaming people, you might have picked up that we quite like Star Wars. We're very subtle about it. So when the publishers of Shatterpoint, the new Star Wars miniature skirmish game by Atomic Mass Games, offered to send us their core set early, we said, yes please. Just for complete transparency, no money has exchanged hands here. They just sent us the core box for review, and we are not required to say or not say anything. This will be entirely our own opinions. Okay, cool? Right, let's open this box up.
First off, the sizable box contains all the stuff to actually play the game. The tokens, special dice, character cards, the rules, all that guff. The rest of the box is full of many sprues, both for miniatures and a whole stack of terrain. The miniatures, which do require glue, they're not like snap fit or anything, go together incredibly nicely with minimal fuss. The only issues are a few parts like the little ears that are on the back of battle droids that are a separate piece that's so small that they're pretty much daring your carpet to eat them. And the lightsabers are astronomically thin. They're plastic, so they do have a little bit of give in them, but I'm terrified at the moment we have to transport them. But those things aside, they are lovely models, with a remarkable amount of detail on them, as in the facial markings on Darth Maul and Ahsoka are sculpted on there, which is ridiculous. They're also quite big. For example, here's one compared to a Warhammer 40,000 Primaris Space Marine, a Star Wars Legion Stormtrooper, a Mantic Enforcer, a 3 3/4 inch Vintage Series Mando, and a Black Series Werner Herzog.
In Shatterpoint, a playable force or strike team consists of two squads. A squad is made up of a primary unit, a secondary unit, and a support unit. The latter of which seems to usually consist of two models, so the 16-ish models in here make two complete forces. One of Anakin, Rex, and some clone troopers of the 501st, along with Ahsoka, Bo-Katan, and some Mandalorians. The other side is Asajj Ventress, a tactical droid, and a bunch of B-1 battle droids with Darth Maul, Gar Saxon, and some other Mandos. It's all very last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars. Most of the minis only go together in one way and one pose, but a few of them have options like an unhelmeted head or alternate arms, so you can customise some of them right out of the box, which is neat.
The terrain is also nice and simple to assemble, and you get a whole bunch of it. But unlike the minis, it's not immediately obvious how some of it goes together, which can be an issue since there's no instructions in here. They are available online in PDF form, but personally I prefer them physically, even if I suppose once they're built I'll never actually need them again. I don't know, maybe I'm just set in my ways, but I like not needing to look at a screen to do this kind of stuff, you know? Although I'll forgive them because this one piece of terrain is a little loathcat, and that is everything to me. Anyway, the terrain can be assembled in quite a few ways, and even once put together can retain a fair bit of modularity. And again, it is quite a lot of stuff. Also, the large scale aside, the terrain is absolutely generic enough to be used for other sci-fi games too, which is always a plus. Given our general slowness at painting and the time period we had to make this, we weren't able to get much painted from this box, but here's what we did manage to get done before it needed to go live. One other thing to mention is this little backdrop that the game comes with for photographing your minis against, which is just a bit of printed cardboard, but it is appreciated. Anyway, I suppose we should actually talk about the game itself. Well, as we said before, it's a small skirmish game, where you have 2 squads each and it's meant to be played on a 36 by 36 inch area. Granted, factoring in all the cards and tokens and stuff you need to play, you'll actually need quite a bit more room than that. The table measurement is also the only time in the game that you get an explicit real-world unit of measurement, since all the measuring in-game is done with these measuring sticks, some of which are bendy, which amuses us far more than it should. The core mechanics of Shatterpoint's combat are fairly simple. When you attack, you roll an amount of attack dice and the defender rolls an amount of defense dice, the results of which are compared against each other, and, after some shenanigans, the strikes left over go onto the damage tree, which is a flowchart of pain. You follow the flowchart along for however many strikes went through, and this says how much damage is actually done, as well as what status effects are applied or abilities were activated. These damage trees are unique to each character, and they branch and rejoin in different ways depending on who you're using, so you can choose to hurt someone in different ways depending on the situation and your mood. Some characters can even change their stances mid-game in order to gain access to a different tree and attacks.
Individual units are fairly tough, as you'd imagine given the small model count, but if they take enough damage a unit becomes injured, and if they get injured too much, they get dead. Each unit also has a host of special abilities that can be activated at different points in the game, some of which synergize with other units. For example, Force and Jetpack users being able to jump, or the Tactical Droid being able to advance battle droids outside of their turn. So between the different trees, abilities, and stats, each unit does end up having a bit of a unique flavour. The way to decide which unit you're playing on any given turn is fairly fun too. You have a small deck of cards with all your units on, which you shuffle and draw from to decide which unit is activated that turn, who then gets to perform 2 actions, with you and your opponent alternating activations. This is also where we get Shatterpoint cards, which are a wild card that means you can activate any unit when you draw it. Which does mean it's possible for a unit to go quite some time without being activated or go several times in a row, which can lead you to developing a headcanon where Bo-Katan is just hanging back and checking her nails or something while everyone else is doing the actual work. Winning a game is not just a matter of making all your opponent's guys dead either. Instead, you must win 2 struggles, which are decided by this little doohickey. Basically, think of it as the game consisting of multiple phases where objectives change locations, and the more a phase goes on, the less it takes to win due to these cubes of momentum. It gives a bit of ebb and flow to the proceedings that could get a little dull where we're just trying to smash each other's heads in.
Although, if we're completely honest, most of these rules do feel a little intimidating on first read, since a lot of terms are thrown around and it can take a little while to fully grasp them. Between struggles, order cards, Shatterpoint cards, stances, combat trees, force pools, momentum tokens, etc, etc. There's a lot of concepts and abstractions to take in, and the presentation style can make it harder to comprehend than it needs to be. I don't know, I guess we're just not on the same wavelength as the designer here, but you may be, and so none of this is a problem to you at all. And to be fair, when it did eventually click, we have had fun with the game, and it flows pretty easily once you both know what you're doing and you're actually playing. The combat is surprisingly swift and easy for saying it contains a flowchart, and the random nature of the activations and the various status effects that you can inflict upon units keeps you on your toes, since even your best laid plans can be undone quickly. The core rules are free to download online, so feel free to check them out for yourself. Maybe you'll have no issue learning them, and my troubles with it are just, I don't know, the result of having a smooth brain or something.
So, the question is, should you pick up the Shatterpoint core set? Well, you get everything that you need to play a game at its full size right out of the box, and the minis and terrain are really quite nice. Extra appealing if you're into the Clone Wars and so have an attachment to these characters. Plus, it's full of Mandalorians, so, you know, I'm happy. Also, it should be said that the artwork throughout the set is gorgeous, sitting between the stylized look of the Clone Wars and their live-action counterparts, and it's always nice to see the artists credited properly. Something some other companies who shall remain nameless could learn from. The game, once you've figured it out, is quite enjoyable from what we've played. I mean, we had a good time with our first game, even when we were consulting the rulebook every 30 seconds, which I always think is a good sign. Although, we'd recommend maybe only playing a single struggle for your first game, just so it doesn't go on for too long while you're still learning. And with more squads and terrain available, and yet more teased, there is more stuff to do beyond this main box. I can totally see us maybe picking up some more minis to play with in the future, even if those do feel pretty pricey for boxes containing just 4 miniatures.
In the UK, the recommended retail price of this set is £164.99, with many places pre-orders being down to around 120 quid, which is not exactly a small amount of money either, but if you add up the terrain and the squads and stuff, you are getting a fair amount in there, especially when you think of how much individual squads are being sold for. So if what we've shown here looks good to you, then we don't think you'll be disappointed with Shatterpoint, which releases early next month. Just maybe set aside an afternoon to figure out the rules before you try and play it, you know?